It's a beautiful day here in South Florida. I'm sitting here thinking about what's happening in our world. I'm thinking of you, my Vietnam veterans. And I would like to ask you if I could have a few words with you. My name is Dr. Du Ho, and I'm from Vietnam. I was born in the early 60s, and I was born in the war zone. I saw the terrible killings and destructions of the war when I was just a little boy. I witnessed the brutal acts of the communists throughout my childhood. The communists of North Vietnam have caused the killings and destructions that burned in my brain. They had no regard for peace or for the life of the innocent people. Even though I was just a small boy, but I remember very well. During the New Year holiday celebration of 1968, they took advantage of the people who were caught completely unaware and launched a massive attack against the people of South Vietnam. But the communists failed to realize that the people of the South were strong and brave. The South Vietnamese and American armed forces stood up together and pushed back the barbaric demons. The South Vietnamese and the American armed forces decisively defeated the communists in the Tet Offensive 1968, even though the American media misrepresented that success by reporting exactly the opposite. After deterring the huge invasion from the north, the people of the South trying to resume their normal lives. However, the North Vietnam communists continue their evil ambition to take over the internationally recognized free and independent sovereign nation of South Vietnam. The war went on. My family, like many others, continue struggling with our lives. Then came the darkest day in April 1975. The North Vietnamese army launched a massive full-scale invasion of the South Vietnam with 200,000 troops that brought the collapse and the fall of Saigon and tragic disaster and suffering for the South Vietnamese people. South Vietnam have fallen into the hands of the communists. We lost our country, and we have lost our freedom. Consequently, the people had to accept their fate. We had to live under the cruel oppression of the communists. I was just a young boy, and I experienced firsthand very hard labor throughout my teen years. It was obvious there was no future here, and I knew that I must fight the way to get out. Like millions of my desperate, frightened people who risked their life to escape communist oppression, I knew I wanted to follow the path of my brothers and sisters have been fighting for, the path of freedom. I still remember so well how our men and women fought for freedom. My Vietnam veterans, I saw you there. You have been in my village, scouting and fighting the enemy. I saw you standing tall, heroically, with the South Vietnamese soldiers, defending us against the communists. I saw you helping the sick and the injured Vietnamese people. I saw you protecting my village and making me and all the children laugh. You brought the freedom and security to my village. You are our angels. I know you were serving and fighting not only for your country, but also for 15 million men, women and children of the South Vietnam. Since you left my village, I tried to follow your path, but the path didn't come easy for me. I have tried to escape 11 times before I could make it out to the oceans, but the danger did not stop there. Our small boat was very crowded with desperate people. We sailed for 5 days and nights in the deep sea with strong wind and big wave, and this tiny, unworthy craft did not reach our destinations. We were lost. Water and food were running out. Fuel was almost gone, and worse storms was about to come. The people in the boat knew that they was facing imminent death. We began praying to God and asking God to take our soul to heaven while our bodies would sink to the deepest ocean floor. My dear friends, there was almost 500,000 boat people had lost their life through their escapes in many different ways. Also, thousands of the people got killed escaping by foot through the jungles of Laos and Cambodia. Their desperate journeys were full of great dangers and horrors. Their little hopeless boats were not just facing strong storms and big waves. They were also facing the worst nightmare from the Thai pilots. The animal cruelty, beast virus, beaten, dropped everyone, and raped the women in front of their husbands and their families. Then in many cases, they just killed the entire hopeless people on board. I was so fortunate and blessed. In September 1982, I finally had an airplane ticket to go to the United States of America. It was one of the happiest days of my life. I knew that I was about to reach my destination, the destination of freedom. People like us, who has experienced the tyranny of the communists, know very well that freedom is not free. My Vietnam veterans, thank you for showing me that you have so much humanity and kindness in your heart. And thank you for showing me what freedom is all about. But I came here not just to say thank you. I came to tell you that in December 1987, I was very proud to become one of you. As soon as I had studied so hard to learn how to speak, read, and write English, I joined the United States Navy. My dream came true. I joined the United States Navy so that I could serve and give back to my great new homeland. Yes, I was standing tall, side by side with my fellow servicemen and women to help protect our beautiful and decent world of free enterprise and democracy. I was so proud and happy to serve my new country on the magnificent aircraft carriers, USS America. What a beautiful name. I have gone through the most struggles and seek for freedom. Then I fought to protect it. Freedom is not free. I realize that people shouldn't take our precious freedom for granted. I therefore wrote the book, The Escapes and My Journey to Freedom. My Vietnam veterans, I wrote this book through my eyes. This is the story of life and death, good and evil, hardship and fortune. And the most important thing of all, this book will tell people freedom is not free. I would like people to understand the real faces of the communist of Vietnam. I also need to tell people the other side of the Vietnam War after the fall of Saigon. My Vietnam veterans, I saw you there, and thank you. I couldn't thank you enough. There's more than 58,000 members of our American Armed Forces, and more than 300,000 of the South Vietnamese Armed Forces paid their ultimate sacrifice in fighting for freedom of Vietnam. May God bless their souls. There was more than 662 American prisoners of war in the Vietnam War. How can we ever begin to imagine what our BOW went through with the barbaric communist of Vietnam? The brutality of the cruel, ruthless of communists caused great pain and suffering were far beyond any descriptions. My VOW, thank you for service and sacrifice. There are almost 3,000 missing in actions. Decades have passed, but I know the agonies are still with their families. Today, I would like to thank all those brave souls whose ultimate sacrifice have made the world a better place for all humanity. To all of our Vietnam veterans and family, thank you. I know you understand that the Vietnam War, like Korean War, was part of the Cold War from 1946 to 1989 against the aggressive expansion of communism. Our country was founded upon the noble principle of freedom, liberty, and justice for all. We must strongly reject dictatorship, communism, and extremism, which cause so much suffering. Our leaders and our military have been fighting and defending our principle, not only for all Americans, but also for our allies and friends. 50 years ago, President John F. Kennedy said, "The United States should make no deal with the Soviet Union at the expense of other nations and other people, not merely because they are our partners, but also because their interests and ours converged." Our interests converge, however, not only in defending our freedom, but also pursuing the path for peace. At the same time, President Kennedy also said, "The communists strive to impose the political and economic system on others is the primary cause of the world's tension today. In the early 1950s, America has succeeded in protecting and preserving the freedom for the people of South Korea from invading communists so that they could have what they are today, a free and thriving democracy. That is in stark contrast to militant communist North Korea with its impoverished, starving people. The freedom and the prosperity of South Korea have been the similar goal for the people of South Vietnam. In 1964, our United States Congress voted overwhelmingly to support the Southeast Asia revolutions, officially authorizing our military support of the internationally recognized free and sovereign nation of the Republic of South Vietnam. President Kennedy has earlier authorized and sent 16,000 advisors to South Vietnam in support of this noble cause. As the war was escalating and the invasion of the communists of North Vietnam, with the massive support of the Red China and the Soviet Union, were getting more intense. Many of our young men and women enlisted in the armed forces. 2/3 of the nearly 2,600,000 troops who served in Vietnam were volunteers. They were answering the call from our President Kennedy, who said, "Ask not what your country do for you, ask what you can do for your country." These men and women were willing to sign up for the armed forces and delay pursuing their personal dreams. They have shown that they put their country first and joined the noble cause. Our Vietnam veterans were the men and women of their times. They gave their energy, their faith, and their devotion to this endeavor, freedom for all. They understood the cause of freedom and fought for that noble cause in spite of the great dangers. Dear my Vietnam veterans, an extremely dark day came to Vietnam in July 1972 with the arrival of Hanoi Jane. This July marked 41 years since Jane Fonda went to Hanoi. I have many questions for her. What did you do to our Vietnam veterans? What did you do to our BOWs? What have you done to the people of South Vietnam? Why did you denounce all of American military leaders as war criminals? Why did you call our BOWs as war criminals and lied about their torture they were enduring? You claimed that you were trying to end the war, but you supported the North Vietnamese communists who were willing, killing our troops, torturing our BOW, and terrorizing South Vietnamese civilians. How can you possibly not feel tremendous shame and regret for the very real harm that you did on your trip to Hanoi, when you gave aid and comfort to our enemies. You show the world with that photograph of you happily posing on North Vietnamese anti-aircraft guns that you support the communists who were shooting down our pilots and then torturing them for years. It is so hard to believe that you're still living in America. Even recently, you showed absolutely no remorse and no compassion when you make a rude comment to our Vietnam veterans heroes. When you said, "Get a life!" Hanoi Jane, let me have a few words with you. You were a clueless and willing tool of the communist propaganda, parroting the words provided to you by your North Vietnamese comrades. Let me give you some facts contrary to your hateful claims. Vietnam veterans absolutely not war criminals. Our BOW are not professional killer machines. Those completely outrageous claims are not only despicable lies, but also slanders. Civilian loss of life and atrocities tragically occur in every war. But American forces completely minimize those tragedies. That is in direct contrast to both the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese Army, which consistently terrorized, tortured, and executed civilians as the standard of their part of war strategy during the Test Offensive. They executed more than 3,000 civilians just in the city of Hue alone. You naively thought that you brought peace to Vietnam, didn't you, Hanoi Jane? You are so wrong. The conquest of the South Vietnam by the North Vietnam turned the country into the nightmare for our people. The darkest days of our history resulted from the fall of Saigon and thereafter. The two horrific images at the fall were far beyond words. Millions, innocent, trying to flee their homelands and die by hundreds of thousands in many different ways. I myself, as a young boy, had to escape 11 times. The wound and suffering are still inside of me until this day. Hanoi Jane, if you had been sincerely interested in peace, why didn't you ask your North Vietnamese friends to stop their invasion and stop the effort to conquer the South Vietnam? Without those aggressive imperialist attacks, there could have been no war. There would have been peace for both of our countries, and millions of people would not have perished. Jane, if you think you and your protester did something good for the country of Vietnam, please answer these questions. What do you know about the condition of the country of Vietnam right now? Do you know that the poor people are crying for help across the country as I speak to you? Do you know that thousands of young, innocent Vietnamese girls are being sold for sex slaves to other countries? Tens of thousands of men and women have been exported to work as slave labor abroad. Do you know that land and properties of the poor people have been taken away so the communist regime can build their own personal fortunes? Do you know that Viet Cong police have been brutalizing the Vietnamese people all over the country from north to south? Is this the idea of peace and freedom? I thought that you supported human rights, civil rights, women's rights, and freedom of speech. Did you demand this right from the Vietnamese people, from your communist friends? You and your anti-war activists protested loudly on behalf of rights, morality, and justice for the people of Vietnam. Where are you and your fellow protesters now that the condition of the oppressed people is worse than it was during the war? I also would like to tell you, the United States military never lost a battle during the war. The United States military definitely did not lose Vietnam. The United States military left Vietnam on the orders of its politicians. President Ronald Reagan said, "Ending a conflict is not so simple. Calling it off and coming home, because the price for that kind of peace could be 1,000 years of darkness for generations Vietnam born." Yes, Hanoi James, it is so true. The whole country of Vietnam had been in darkness. I hope you understand that the entire country of Vietnam is now in agony. What kind of peace is without freedom? Peace, freedom, and liberty need to work together. Our President Thomas Jefferson said, "When the people fear the government, there is tyranny. When the government fears people, there is liberty." Hanoi James, the fear of the people for the Vietnam communist regime is tremendous in the last several decades. President Ronald Reagan was one of our presidents. He effectively ended the 43 years Cold War without fighting a shot and facilitated the collapse of the Soviet Union. Nancy Reagan was such a grateful First Lady. And you, Hanoi James, should most certainly not having the privilege of playing her role in a movie. You dishonor the legacy and the patriotism and dignity to our First Lady and our President. It is time for you to fully recognize the consequences you and your protester have caused. It is also time for us to realize that we are human and God grants us a conscience to do good deed. God has taken all our sins for us so we all could be forgiven. Miss Jane Fonda, it's time for you to step forward and show that you are a real American. It's time to heal And it's time for you to respectfully ask for the forgiveness from our Vietnam veteran heroes from the bottom of your heart and souls. Healings is good for all of us, and hatred can only do evil before we all go with God. We should prepare ourselves to be in a good spirit. Don't you agree? If you have a conscience, Miss Fonda, it's time for you to raise your voice loudly to the communists of Vietnam. Tell the communist regime that freedom needs to return to the people. You need to help bring freedom and basic human rights back to the good people of Vietnam. My Vietnam veterans, thank you so much for everything you did for us. Please be proud that you step up and serve your country in fighting for 15 million men, women and children of South Vietnam. My Vietnam veterans, thank you for letting me have the opportunity to speak with you today. But this is not just my voice. It's also the voice of all the people of South Vietnam. You are always our heroes. Please accept these grateful words from our heart and souls. Thank you so much for your service and sacrifice in fighting for a moral and noble cause on our behalf. God bless you. Thank you and welcome home. Thank you and welcome home.